The funeral home smelled like lilies and old carpet. I sat in the back row watching my family grieve in their own performative ways. My brother Marcus stood at the front, greeting people like he was hosting a networking event. Firm handshakes, solemn nods. That perfect expression of controlled grief that he'd probably practiced in the mirror. "Thank you for coming," he said to Dad's business partner. "Dad would have appreciated it. We'll have to discuss the transition of the company soon. I'll be taking over, of course." Of course. My mother sat in the front row, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. My sister Lauren was beside her, one arm around Mom's shoulders, the other checking her phone every 30 seconds. Me. I was invisible. As usual. I'd flown in from Seattle that morning. Took a cab straight from the airport to the funeral home. I was wearing a simple black dress I'd bought 3 years ago. My hair was pulled back. No jewelry except the watch Dad gave me for my college graduation. Nobody had noticed me arrive. Nobody had saved me a seat. Nobody had called to ask if I needed a ride. I was used to it. The service started. The pastor said nice things about Dad. Some of it was even true. He'd been a complicated man. Brilliant in business. Distant at home. He'd built a commercial real estate company worth $47 million and spent more time with his properties than his children. Except for Marcus. Marcus had been groomed since birth to take over. Dad had taught him everything. Brought him to site inspections. Let him sit in on negotiations. Paid for his MBA at Harvard. Lauren got attention for being pretty and charming. The daughter who made Dad look good at social events. Me. I was Emma. The middle child. The quiet one. The one who'd moved across the country and called twice a year. The one they forgot about. After the service we moved to the reception area. Coffee and cookies that nobody touched. People gathered in small groups talking in hushed voices. That's when Marcus decided to make his announcement. He clinked a spoon against a glass. Everyone turned. "I want to thank you all for being here today," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the room. "Dad meant everything to me. He taught me how to be a man. How to run a business. How to build something that lasts." People nodded. Someone said, "Hear, hear." "I know Dad would want me to take care of this family now. So I want everyone to know." He paused for effect. "The house, the business, everything is mine now. I'll be stepping into Dad's role as CEO of Hartman Properties. I'll be taking care of Mom. Making sure the family legacy continues." He looked around the room, his expression noble. Sacrificial. The dutiful son accepting his burden. Everyone nodded. Of course Marcus would get everything. Marcus was the golden child. The heir apparent. My mother was crying again. Lauren hugged her. "We're so lucky to have you, Marcus," Mom said. "Your father would be so proud." Marcus's college friend clapped him on the shoulder. Dad's business partner shook his hand. People lined up to congratulate him like he'd just won an award. I stayed in my corner by the coffee table. Invisible. But I wasn't worried. Because I knew something they didn't. The will reading was scheduled for 2 days after the funeral. Dad's lawyer, Richard Morrison, had called me personally. "Emma, I need you to be there," he'd said. "It's important. Don't let anyone talk you out of coming." I wasn't planning on missing it. "Good, Emma. Prepare yourself. Your family is going to be surprised." I'd spent those 2 days at a hotel near Dad's house. I didn't stay at the house itself. Marcus had already moved into the master bedroom, and I wasn't about to fight him for a guest room. Lauren called once. "Are you coming to the will reading?" she asked. "Yes." "You don't have to. I know it's hard for you. Being here. Seeing Marcus get everything. It might be easier if you just skip it. I'll be there." "Hey. But don't make a scene, Emma. Marcus is under a lot of stress right now. He doesn't need you causing problems." I almost laughed. Me causing problems? I'd been gone for 6 years and barely anyone noticed. "I won't cause problems," I said. That was true. I wasn't going to cause anything. I was just going to exist. And watch. The will reading was held at Morrison and Associates, the law firm that had handled Dad's affairs for 20 years. We gathered in a conference room with a long table and leather chairs. Marcus sat at the head of the table, already claiming his position. He'd dressed for the occasion. Expensive suit, Italian shoes, the Rolex Dad had given him for his 30th birthday. Mom sat to his right. Lauren to his left. Dad's business partner, Tom Chin, was there too. And Dad's accountant, Margaret Hayes. I took a seat near the end of the table. Marcus barely glanced at me. Richard Morrison entered carrying a leather folder. He was 65, gray-haired, and had the kind of calm demeanor that came from 40 years of delivering bad news to entitled people. "Thank you all for coming," Richard said, sitting down. "I know this is a difficult time. I'll try to make this as straightforward as possible." "Let's just get through it," Marcus said. "I have meetings this afternoon. The business doesn't stop." Richard gave him a long look. "Yes. The business. We'll get to that." He opened the folder and pulled out several documents. "This is the last will and testament of Robert James Hartman, revised and executed 6 months ago." 6 months ago? Mom said. "He changed his will?" "Yes. Substantially." Marcus shifted in his chair. "Hey. Well, whatever changes he made, I'm sure they were minor. Dad and I discussed everything. I know his wishes." "Did you?" Richard's tone was flat. He put on his reading glasses. "Let's begin." He started with the formalities. The declaration that Dad was of sound mind. The revocation of all previous wills. The appointment of Richard as executor. Then he got to the distributions. "To my son Marcus Robert Hartman, I leave my personal book collection, my Omega watch, and a cash sum of $50,000. Silence. Marcus blinked. "What?" "To my daughter Lauren Marie Hartman, I leave my wife's jewelry collection, the painting in my office, and a cash sum of $50,000. Lauren's mouth opened. "That's it." "To my wife Patricia Ann Hartman, I leave a life estate in the family home on Maple Ridge Drive, with all expenses paid from the estate, and a monthly allowance of $8,000 for the duration of her life." Mom looked confused. "Life estate? What does that mean?" "It means you can live in the house until you pass away, but you don't own it," Richard explained. "Then who owns it?" Richard looked at me. "We're getting to that." My heart was pounding. I kept my face neutral. Richard continued. "The family home on Maple Ridge Drive upon Patricia Hartman's death will pass to my daughter Emma Grace Hartman in its entirety." I sat quietly in the back. Marcus's head snapped toward me. "What?" "The vacation property in Lake Tahoe passes to Emma Grace Hartman, effective immediately." "Wait," Lauren said. "The commercial property at 447 Industrial Boulevard passes to Emma Grace Hartman." "Hold on," Marcus stood up. "The investment portfolio held at Fidelity, valued at approximately $3.2 million, passes to Emma Grace Hartman." Then the lawyer started reading the will. My brother's smile faded with every sentence. "This isn't right," Marcus said. His voice was rising. "There's been a mistake." Richard ignored him. "Hartman Properties Incorporated, including all assets, contracts, properties, and business interests, is hereby transferred to Emma Grace Hartman, who will assume the role of CEO and majority shareholder." When the lawyer said my name for the 5th time, my brother stood up and screamed. "No." Marcus slammed his hands on the table. "That's impossible. Dad wouldn't, he promised me. I've been running that company with him for 10 years. "Mr. Hartman, please sit down," Richard said calmly. "I will not sit down. This is fraud. He pointed at me. "She hasn't been here. She doesn't know anything about the business. She moved away and abandoned this family." "Marcus," Mom started. "No. This is insane. Emma doesn't deserve any of this." His face was red. Veins standing out on his neck. "I'm contesting this. I'm getting a lawyer. This will is invalid." "You're welcome to try," Richard said. "But I assure you this will is legally sound. Your father was very clear about his intentions. He was also very clear about why he made these choices." "Why?" Lauren's voice was small. "Why would Dad do this?" Richard pulled out another document. "Your father left letters. For each of you. Would you like me to read them, or would you prefer to read them privately?" "Read them," Marcus demanded. "I want to hear what possible justification." "Very well." Richard picked up the first letter. "This is addressed to Marcus." He began to read. Asterisk, "Marcus, by the time you hear this, you'll be angry. You'll feel betrayed. You'll think I've made a mistake. But I haven't. I've watched you for 35 years and I've seen what kind of man you've become. You're smart. You're capable. But you're also entitled, cruel, and you treat people beneath you like they're disposable. You remind me of my father, the man I spent my life trying not to become. I built Hartman Properties with the belief that business should be about more than profit. It should be about integrity, about treating people with respect. You don't have those values, son. You never did. I gave you every opportunity to prove me wrong. You didn't. So I'm giving the company to someone who will run it the way it should be run. Someone who actually cares about people. I hope you use this time to learn what I failed to teach you. Sis. The room was silent. Marcus's face had gone from red to white. He was shaking. Richard picked up the second letter. This is for Lauren. Asterisk, Lauren, you're beautiful and charming and you've used those gifts to coast through life. I enabled that. I'm sorry. I gave you money whenever you asked. I never made you work for anything. That was my failure as a father. The small inheritance I'm leaving you is enough to help you start over, but not enough to live on indefinitely. I hope you'll use this time to discover who you are when you can't rely on your looks or the family name. You're smarter than you think. Prove it. Sis. Lauren was crying. Silent tears running down her face. Richard picked up the third letter. Patricia. Asterisk, Patricia, you've been a good wife. You've supported me through everything. But you've also allowed our children to become people I'm not proud of. You've enabled Marcus's arrogance and Lauren's laziness. You've dismissed Emma's achievements because they made you uncomfortable. I'm providing for you because I made a commitment when we married. But I'm not giving you control of my estate. I don't trust you to distribute it fairly. I hope you'll use this time to build a relationship with the daughter you've ignored. She deserves better from you. Sis. Mom's handkerchief was soaked. She wasn't looking at anyone. Richard picked up the last letter. Looked at me. Emma. Asterisk, Emma, if you're hearing this, then I'm gone. I'm sorry I wasn't a better father to you. I'm sorry I let Marcus and Lauren overshadow you. I'm sorry I didn't defend you when your mother dismissed your choices. The truth is you scared me. You were independent. You didn't need me. You built a life on your own terms and that made you different from the rest of us. 6 months ago you called to tell me about your consulting business. How you'd grown it from nothing. How you were advising companies on sustainable development. You were so excited. And I realized I'd never really listened to you before. So I started paying attention. I looked up your company. I read articles you'd written. I talked to people who knew you. And I discovered something. You're exactly the kind of person who should run Hartman Properties. Not because you're my daughter. But because you understand something Marcus never will. That business is about people. About building communities. About leaving things better than you found them. I'm giving you the company because I trust you to run it with integrity. I'm giving you the properties because I know you'll take care of them. And I'm giving you the majority of my estate because, frankly, you're the only one who doesn't need it. Which makes you the only one I trust with it. I love you, Emma. I'm sorry I didn't say that more. Make me proud. Dad, asterisk. But that wasn't even the best part. Richard set down the letter and pulled out one more document. There's one additional item, he said. 6 months ago, Robert Hartman established a trust. The Emma Grace Hartman Trust. He transferred several personal assets into it, separate from the will. He slid a paper across the table to me. I picked it up, scanned it, felt my breath catch. What is it? Mom asked. It's. I had to clear my throat. It's a trust worth $8.4 million. In stocks, bonds, and cash. What? Marcus exploded. That's not possible. Where did that money come from? From your father's personal investments, Richard said. Separate from the business. He accumulated it over 30 years. And he gave it all to her? Lauren's voice was hollow. Yes. I stared at the paper. At Dad's signature at the bottom. At the date, 6 months ago. Right after our phone call. He'd actually listened. For the first time in my life he'd actually heard me. And this was his way of saying sorry. Marcus was pacing now. Hands in his hair. This is insane. This is completely insane. She doesn't even want the business. Do you, Emma? Tell them. Tell them you don't want it. Everyone looked at me. I set down the trust document. Folded my hands on the table. Looked at my brother. Actually, I said quietly, I do want it. You what? I want the business. I want the properties. I want all of it. You don't know anything about commercial real estate. I know about sustainable development. I know about community building. I know about treating people with respect. I stood up. And I know that in the 10 years you've been running operations, you've had 17 harassment complaints filed against you. 13 from women. 4 from men who refused to participate in your boys' club culture. Marcus went very still. I know you've been cutting corners on maintenance to boost profit margins. I know you've been pressuring tenants to leave so you can raise rents beyond market value. I know you've been running the company exactly the way Dad feared you would. How do you? His eyes narrowed. You've been investigating me? No. Tom has. I looked at Dad's business partner. Isn't that right? Tom Chin cleared his throat. Your father asked me to keep an eye on things. 6 months ago. After he decided to change his will. You knew. Marcus turned on him. You knew and you didn't tell me? Your father swore me to secrecy. I'm sorry, Marcus. But Emma's right. The complaints. The corner cutting. I documented everything. Robert saw the reports before he died. It confirmed what he already suspected. You backstabbing. Enough, Richard said sharply. Mr. Hartman, you need to leave. Now. This isn't over, Marcus said. He was shaking with rage. I'm contesting this will. I'm suing for wrongful distribution. I'm going to fight this with everything I have. You're welcome to try, Richard said again. But you should know your father anticipated that. There's a clause in the will. If anyone contests it, they forfeit their entire inheritance, including the $50,000. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. Additionally, Richard continued, if you pursue legal action against Emma or attempt to interfere with her management of Hartman Properties, there are consequences. Your father was very thorough. What consequences? Richard pulled out another document. Your father kept detailed records of your business dealings, including several that were, shall we say, ethically questionable, if not outright illegal. Tax issues. Fraudulent expense reports. A rather significant kickback scheme with a contractor. The color drained from Marcus's face. Your father never reported these issues because he hoped you'd change. But if you contest this will, these documents go to the appropriate authorities. Your choice. Marcus stood there for a long moment. His hands clenched into fists. His jaw working. Then he grabbed his jacket and walked out. Slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Lauren looked at me. Did you know about any of this? No. Dad never told me he was changing his will. Then why? Why did he give you everything? I thought about that phone call. 6 months ago. I'd been so excited to tell Dad about my business. About how I just landed a major client. About how I was finally doing something that mattered. He'd listened. Really listened. For 45 minutes. And at the end he'd said something I'd never heard him say before. I'm proud of you, Emma. 3 words. That's all it took. Because I built something on my own, I said. Without his help. Without his money. Without his name. And I think he respected that. Mom was crying again. Harder now. I didn't know. I didn't know you'd done all that. You never told us. I tried. Multiple times. But Marcus always had a bigger story. Lauren always had more drama. There was never room for mine. Emma. She reached for my hand. I let her take it. I'm so sorry. I know. Can you forgive me? I looked at her. At her swollen eyes and ruined makeup. At the mother who'd spent 32 years loving my siblings more than me. Eventually, I said. Maybe. But not today. The next morning I went to the Hartman Properties office. Tom met me in the parking lot. Ready? He asked. No. But let's do it anyway. The office was buzzing. Word had already spread about the will. About Marcus losing the company. About me inheriting everything. People stared as I walked through. Whispered. I heard Marcus's name. Heard my name. Heard speculation about what would happen next. Tom led me to what had been Dad's office. My office now. It was exactly as I remembered. Dark wood. Leather chairs. The painting Lauren had inherited was already gone. She must have taken it yesterday. But Dad's desk was still there. His computer. His files. The staff is waiting in the conference room, Tom said. Whenever you're ready. I took a breath. Sat down in Dad's chair. It felt too big. Too important. But I was here. and I had work to do. Let's go, I said. The conference room was packed. 30 employees. All of them uncertain. Worried about their jobs. About what the new boss would be like. I stood at the head of the table. Where Marcus had stood 3 days ago claiming everything. Hi, I said. I'm Emma Hartman. I know most of you don't know me. That's okay. We'll get to know each other. But first I want to make some things clear. I pulled out a folder. Opened it. I've spent the last 6 months reviewing this company's operations. With my father's permission. What I found was troubling. Harassment complaints that were ignored. Safety violations that were covered up. Maintenance deferred to save money. Employees afraid to speak up because they'd be fired. People were glancing at each other. Nervous. That ends today. Effective immediately, we're implementing a new complaint system with independent oversight. We're conducting safety audits on every property. We're bringing maintenance up to code, even if it costs us this quarter's profit. And anyone who has been afraid to speak up, you can come to me directly. No retaliation. Ever. Someone in the back raised their hand. A young woman. What about Marcus? Is he coming back? No. Marcus no longer has any role in this company. And you're really the CEO now? You're running everything? Yes. But you don't have any experience in commercial real estate. That's true. I have experience in sustainable development and community building. Which is what this company is going to focus on now. We're not just landlords. We're part of the communities we serve. And we're going to act like it. Tom stepped forward. I've been working with Robert Hartman for 20 years. I knew him better than almost anyone. And I can tell you, Emma is exactly who he wanted running this company. He has his vision, his integrity, and his commitment to doing things right. But can she actually run a $47 million company? Someone asked. I built a consulting firm from $0 to $3 million in revenue in 4 years, I said. I think I can figure it out. But I'm not doing it alone. Tom is staying on as CEO. Margaret will continue as our accountant. And I'm hiring an experienced commercial real estate director to handle day-to-day operations while I learn. This is a team effort. I looked around the room. At the faces watching me. Judging me. Deciding whether to trust me. I know I have to prove myself, I said. I know you're all skeptical. That's fair. So here's what I'm proposing. Give me 6 months. If after 6 months you don't think I'm the right person to lead this company, I'll hire an outside CEO and step into a board position. But give me the chance to try. Give me the chance to show you what this company can be. Silence. Then someone started clapping. The young woman who'd asked about Marcus. Others joined in. Not everyone. But enough. It was a start. That night I sat in my hotel room with a glass of wine and my laptop. I opened my email and started going through messages. There was one from Marcus. Subject line, you'll regret this. I deleted it without opening it. One from Lauren. Subject line, can we talk? I saved that one. Maybe in a few days. One from Mom. Subject line, proud of you. I stared at that one for a long time. Then opened it. Asterisk Emma, I know I have no right to say this. But I watched you today. At the office. Tom sent me a video that one of the employees took. You were confident. Strong. Exactly like your father at his best. I've spent 32 years overlooking you, and I can see now what a mistake that was. You're remarkable. You always were. I just couldn't see it. I hope someday you'll let me try to be the mother you deserved. Love, Mom. Asterisk. I closed the laptop. Finished my wine. Looked out at the city lights. 6 months ago I was running my consulting business in Seattle. Living in a nice apartment. Dating someone who didn't quite get me. Calling my parents twice a year and pretending it was enough. Now I was the CEO of a $47 million company. The owner of multiple properties. The heir to an estate worth over $15 million. And somehow it wasn't the money or the properties that mattered. It was the letter. Dad's letter. The one where he finally saw me. Finally understood that I didn't need his approval. I'd built my own life without it. And in seeing that, he'd given me something more valuable than any inheritance. He'd given me validation. Not that I was successful by his standards, but that I was successful by my own. And maybe that's what he'd been trying to teach Marcus all along. That real success isn't about what you inherit or what's handed to you. It's about what you build yourself. Marcus never learned that lesson. But I had. And now I had the chance to build something even bigger. Not just for myself but for the people who worked for this company. For the communities we served. I picked up my phone. Called Tom. "Hey," I said when he answered. "I've been thinking about our properties. The ones in lower-income neighborhoods. What if we started a program? Reduced rent for community spaces. Support for local businesses. Investment in the areas that need it most." "That would cut into profits," Tom said. But I could hear the smile in his voice. "I know. But it's the right thing to do. And I think Dad would have approved." "He absolutely would have. Let's do it." I hung up and smiled. This was just the beginning. Marcus had stood up at Dad's funeral and announced that everything was his. He'd been so confident. So certain. He'd been wrong. Not because he didn't deserve success. But because he'd never understood what success actually meant. It wasn't about owning things. It wasn't about power or control. It was about building something that mattered. Something that lasted. Something that made the world a little bit better. Dad had spent 40 years building Hartman Properties. And now it was mine. Not to run the way Marcus would have. Not to maximize profits at any cost. But to do it right. The way Dad had always hoped it would be done. And maybe in doing that I'd finally become the daughter he'd always wanted. The one he saw in the end. The one he chose.